Julia Fisher, and you're listening to The Olive Tree, bringing you the stories of believers living in Israel today. After 10 years of making this programme, I'm frequently surprised by many of the stories we gather. Who would have thought that a young Dutch boy, when on a visit to Jerusalem with his family, would have a deep spiritual experience that would shape the rest of his life? That's what happened to David van Owerkerk. We met him recently in Netanya, and here he is in conversation with Ann Pawson.
So I grew up in a town in Holland called Apeldoorn, and I lived there since 2009, when I was 13. I'm 23 now, and grew up with 4 siblings and my parents. My parents had their own business. Meanwhile, we always had a heart for Israel. Actually, we would come to Israel on vacation very regularly. This is also one of the times that God really spoke to me clearly, was when I was actually 3 years old and we came to Jerusalem and we were walking in the old city. I was actually in the stroller because I was still so young. And then my parents pushed me forward, and then suddenly I just felt God's presence so strongly. And this is really a moment, I think, that marked my life. And so I remember it so clearly. I felt God's presence so strongly. I jumped up from my stroller, I undid the buckle. I was like, Mom and Dad, this is the best place in the world. And I started to prophesy stuff and dance and shout and scream. And my parents were like, what is going on, And, but for me, it felt like I came home, The closest I can relate to it was feeling like King David, dancing in the streets of Jerusalem, just being so happy with feeling God's presence. And when I came back from that trip, I would spend a lot of time with God, really one-on-one, after my parents brought me to bed. I would spend,
So this was at a very young age. At 3, you felt that powerful impact of God. That is very, very special.
Yeah. So I think from then on, I already knew, as much as I could know as a 3-year-old, that, Israel was something special. But then as I was growing up, was spending so much time one-on-one with the Lord. When I could write, I started to write Psalms also, and really, I loved it when we would go on vacation to Israel. It really felt to me like I came home. And then we had a pretty big company, so it was very hard for us to sell it because we already wanted to move since the 90s. We wanted to move to Israel. So when we finally found a buyer in 2008, we were very thankful and very happy, and it meant that we were going to go forward with our plans and realize the move. And then at that point, lots of questions were going through my head. I really felt like, coming to Israel, this is the land that Jesus lived. So for me, I thought, I can be so open with my faith and everything. I was like, in Holland, people are so open already. And I was like, how much more open will they be for me to share? And, I really had no idea of what the spiritual climate was in Israel.
So 2008, how old were you exactly then?
When we found out, I was 13. I just turned 13, and then we moved in 2009. I was still 13, almost 14 at that point. Then we decided to go to an Israeli school. My parents let us choose whether we wanted to go to an American school or an Israeli school, and we chose to go to the Israeli school first to integrate as much as we could. And then after coming there, it was a big smack in the face to me to realize that people were not only very closed, they weren't open, but they were actually very, very much against, the beliefs that I grew up in, my faith as a Christian. And this to me was a very big shock. But after we started going there for a few months, I really made the choice already to, my faith for the first time in my life would really showed as a weakness. So I had the choice whether I wanted to blend in with the rest and not share much about my faith, or to have friends. And I already then chose I would rather be an outsider than betray my beliefs and betray my faith. So I think this is something also that even made it stronger. Then after that year, we did go to the American school because I already stayed a grade and I couldn't stay another grade. But we did learn Hebrew at that point and we integrated, so this was very positive. Yeah.
So you came in as Gentiles, not having any Jewish roots, or so you thought.
Yes, exactly. So we thought. So then, after being in the American school for a few years and doing my high school there, suddenly, after 5 years of living in Israel, the state has to make a choice whether you get kicked out of the country or whether you get more permanent situation. And for us, it was very, very hard because we had no idea what would happen. And it really looked uncertain about what God was going to do, whether we were going to go back or stay here. But then a few interesting things happened right at that time. There was a funeral from a family member from us from Holland, who, more like distant family. And at the funeral, we met people from our distant family who told us we should look into our family history. And, we never thought about doing that. But then they said they knew something, so then we started to really investigate, and we looked at old diaries, we looked at old phone records, we did a DNA test, my mother and my brother. And then after a few months of doing this research, the whole story actually came to the surface that my mom's mother was born in Lithuania to Joseph and Elizabeth Cohen, very, very Jewish family. And this was before the war, years before the war. And then when the war broke out, the family was taken to the area of Buchenwald, to the concentration camp there, where most likely the parents, they were killed there, and she managed to escape. And because she looked like a German girl, she was taken to a German convent for nuns. And she was raised there as a German girl, given a new name. This experience was so traumatizing for her that she never shared about it with my mom, because she grew up and then moved to Holland and met my grandfather there, and my mom was born. And when they asked her about her past, she was always very vague. She would start to yell, and she would always avoid the questions. So parents just didn't want to ask her anymore. And, she passed already 15 years ago. So she never shared it with us.
So then now you're settled, you've got, your background, and you went off to university, and we fast forward a few years, and now I've just heard that you're part of this mission team that's gone to Germany to do a very special work. So could you tell us about this team, what you do and what's involved?
Yes. So at this point, about a year and a half ago, I was approached by Evan, my pastor, to join on a new kind of mission trip. Because I've been on mission trips before, on reconciliation trips before, where reconciliation was more the end result, the goal, that we were just coming together to speak and answer hard questions. And to me, this was very challenging, but very good at the same time, because normally as an Israeli, you don't have contact with Palestinians. So this really opened many doors for me to be challenged in this way and to challenge my beliefs. So then when Evan shared with me that they have a new idea to go with Arabs, Jews, and Germans, all believers, to go and to work as a mission team, for me it was very excited, because I also love being evangelistic in this way. So to me it really clicked. And then last year we went to Berlin with the group, and it was a very, very powerful experience, very new. And I think also there we realized that having reconciliation more as a part of a process than our end goal, it was really a shift of our paradigm, and we saw the fruit of it compared to other reconciliation trips we had. We were much more close and connected because we all had the same mission, the end goal, and it kind of didn't leave any room for our personal conflicts. It was like we were all coming together to focus on what we were going to do, and in the process we really got to know each other in a very intimate way.
And this is the Arabs, the Messianic believers, and the Gentile believers.
Yes.
And Arabs, were they both from the West Bank, Palestinian Arabs, and Israeli Arabs?
So for these trips, they were Arabs. They were mostly in Nazareth and other places, so more Israeli Arabs. But for the upcoming years, now we are actually speaking to people from the Palestinian territories also. And there we will be able to get some more people. So it's very interesting. But this past year, so the second time we went, we changed our motto more to becoming the message more than just sharing a message.
So what does that mean, becoming the message?
So the first year, it was more like we were sharing, reading from a script kind of. We were working with a team there, and it would just, to me, felt maybe a little bit more static, like we were sharing a message and not using the testimony that we could be sharing with them, coming together, because we split up into little groups on the streets, with at least with one German, one, Messianic, and one Christian Arab. So we felt like we need to become the message more and demonstrate God's love when we're speaking with people or praying for people or just sharing our testimony with them. And now this year, when we went to Salzburg and a few other places, we saw this actually was a lot more fruitful. And just the experience just felt very different. I feel like now it felt a lot more maybe natural and organic to come together with this team.
So you went out as a team. You had built up such a warm relationship between yourselves that was how you should love. The love between you to the others that you were trying to speak to. Is that right?
Exactly. I think also because coming together there really for the purpose of reaching others with the love of Christ. Like I said, I think it doesn't leave much room for our own agendas. And so I think it was a very powerful and meaningful experience as a whole.
Okay.
I'm excited to see what God is going to do next.
You've been listening to Ann Pawson in conversation with David, a young man from Holland who found out that he was Jewish and has now found his home in Israel. The Olive Tree Reconciliation Fund is a Christian charity based in the UK that supports the needs of both Jewish believers and Arab or Palestinian Christians living in Israel and the wider Middle East. If you'd like to know more about our work through our bi-monthly newsletter, including news about our upcoming tours, please either visit our website www.olivetreefund.org or write to me, Julia Fisher, OTRF, PO Box 402, Billingshurst, RH 14 4BQ in the UK. Meanwhile, join me at the same time next week for another story from the Olive Tree. Until then, goodbye.